On April 22, 2025, the sleepy valley town of Powgam in Kashmir was shattered by violence. In the early morning hours, a group of armed militants struck with ruthless precision, targeting buses filled with tourists. When the gunfire stopped, 26 innocent lives had been lost, most of them Hindu pilgrims who had come seeking peace in the mountains. The brutality of the attack stunned the world, but it was just the beginning of a far greater crisis. Within hours, the news reverberated across the subcontinent, igniting a diplomatic firestorm that threatened to spiral out of control. Accusations flew across borders. India declared that the attack bore the unmistakable fingerprints of cross-border terrorism, blaming groups based in Pakistan. Pakistan denied any involvement, but the damage was done. Borders were immediately sealed. Visas were cancelled as suspicion and anger mounted. The fragile line of control, already tense, erupted with artillery shelling as both militaries exchanged fire. The world held its breath, watching a familiar powder keg threaten to explode once again. The response from New Delhi was swift and fierce. In the dead of night, the Indian Air Force launched Operation Sindandur, a series of airstrikes targeting 9 suspected terrorist camps deep inside Pakistani territory. The strikes were intended as a show of force, a warning that India would not tolerate attacks on its soil. But the escalation didn't stop there. As the dust settled, India made an unprecedented threat. It would cut off the flow of Indus River water to Pakistan. For decades, the Indus has been the lifeline of Pakistan, sustaining its people and irrigating its fields. By threatening to turn off the taps, India was wielding a weapon as powerful as any bomb. Pakistan's response was immediate and stark. That would be an act of war, Islamabad declared. With both nations on hair-trigger alert, the world watched as the standoff threatened to cross a point of no return. But why does Kashmir, this remote, mountainous region, hold such explosive power over South Asia and the world? The answer lies at the intersection of geography, history, and identity. Strategically, Kashmir sits at the crossroads of South and Central Asia, sharing borders with China as well as India and Pakistan. It is the source of the mighty Indus River system, which provides water for millions in Pakistan. But Kashmir is also a religious and political flashpoint, sacred to Hindus, Muslims, and Buddhists alike. Its fate has become intertwined with the national identities of both India and Pakistan, a place where competing dreams of nationhood clash with deadly consequences. Nowhere else on Earth do two nuclear-armed rivals contest such a bitter, unresolved territorial conflict. The stakes could not be higher. To understand how we reached this dangerous juncture, we must look back to the dying days of the British Empire. In 1947, Britain split its vast Indian colony into 2 new nations, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. The hurried partition left chaos in its wake. Over 15 million people were uprooted from their homes, and more than 1 million died in a frenzy of communal violence. Kashmir, ruled by a Hindu king but with a Muslim-majority population, found itself caught in the middle. Pressured by an invasion from Pakistani tribesmen, the king chose to accede to India, triggering the First India-Pakistan War. The bloodshed and trauma of partition still haunt the region to this day, a wound left open by imperial retreat. The decades that followed saw the subcontinent convulsed by conflict. In 1965 and again in 1971, India and Pakistan fought full-scale wars over territory and identity. The 1971 war proved especially devastating for Pakistan, which lost its eastern half, now the independent nation of Bangladesh. Even as the dust settled, a new danger loomed. In 1998, both nations conducted underground nuclear tests, forever altering the calculus of war and peace in the region. The world watched in horror as the 1999 Kargil War erupted, 2 nuclear-armed adversaries locked in a deadly mountain standoff. The threat of catastrophe became all too real. Yet even as the world's gaze drifted, the fires of conflict continued to smolder. Since 1989, the Kashmir Valley has been gripped by a brutal insurgency. Armed groups, some with links to Pakistan, have waged a campaign of violence against Indian rule. Over 40,000 people have died. Entire communities, hundreds of thousands of Hindus among them, have been forced to flee their homes. In 2019, India revoked the region's special autonomy, sparking a new wave of unrest and sealing the valley under curfew. Fear, suspicion, and grief have become the air that Kashmiris breathe. Now, as the world enters a new era of crisis, a resource as ancient as civilization itself has become the ultimate weapon: water. The Indus River, born in the Himalayan glaciers of Indian-controlled Kashmir, flows westward to irrigate more than 90% of Pakistan's farmland. Without it, millions would face thirst and starvation. By threatening to dam or divert the river, India is not just rattling sabers, it is putting Pakistan's very survival on the line. In this century, some experts warn, wars will be fought not over land or ideology, but over the simple, irreplaceable resource of water. The consequences could be more devastating than any bomb. In the aftermath of the Powgam attack, the subcontinent stands closer to catastrophe than at any time in recent memory. The machinery of war, missiles, jets, tanks, stands ready on both sides. With so little trust and so much at stake, a single miscalculation could trigger a chain reaction of violence, and the world cannot afford to look away. Experts warn that a nuclear exchange between India and Pakistan could kill up to 125 million people in a matter of days. The fallout would not stop at their borders. Soot and ash from burning cities would rise into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and plunging the world into a nuclear winter. Crops would fail. Famine and disease would spread. The very future of humanity could hang in the balance. Yet within this darkness, there remains a glimmer of hope. The lesson of Kashmir is not just one of tragedy and loss, but of the urgent need for human solutions. Understanding the history, the wounds of partition, the scars of war, the struggle for water and dignity, is the first step. But we must go further. The peoples of India, Pakistan, and Kashmir deserve a future defined not by fear, but by peace, justice, and cooperation. Only by working together, across borders, faiths, and histories, can we avoid the abyss and build a future worthy of the lives lost and the generations yet to come.